Hello, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about something that touches every one of us: procrastination. That quiet little voice in your head that says, "I'll do it tomorrow." The reason why projects stay unfinished, why dreams get postponed, and why so many of us feel stuck. But here's the twist. Procrastination isn't just about laziness. Scientists have found that it's tied to how our brains are wired, to fear, emotions, and the battle between short-term comfort and long-term goals. In this video, we're going to dive deep into the science, the stories, and the solutions. You'll hear about famous people who struggled with it, what modern psychology tells us about why we delay, and most importantly, how to break free. So if you've ever felt trapped in the cycle of tomorrow, 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 stay with me, because today we're going to figure out how to take back control.
Lesson 1. The Science of Delay. Why is it so easy to scroll endlessly on your phone, but so hard to open that book you've been meaning to read? Why does your brain push you toward Netflix instead of the gym, toward instant noodles instead of cooking, toward delay instead of action? Scientists have been asking the same question for decades, and what they've discovered is simple but powerful. Procrastination is not a moral failure. It's a wiring issue. In 1997, two researchers, Diane Tice and Roy Baumeister, tracked hundreds of college students. At the beginning of the semester, procrastinators seemed relaxed, even happier. Putting off work lowered their stress, for a while. But by the end, they had worse grades, higher stress, and even more health problems. The short-term relief had turned into long-term damage. Why? Because every time we delay, two parts of the brain go to war. On one side, the prefrontal cortex, the planner. This is the rational voice that says, study now so you pass later. On the other side, the limbic system, the emotional center. This one says, why suffer now when you can feel good right away? Guess which one shouts louder? The limbic system. That's why you grab the cookie, hit snooze, or binge watch. It's not that you don't care about your goals. It's that your emotional brain hijacks the controls in the moment. And there's more. In 2013, scientists at Ruhr University in Germany studied the brains of chronic procrastinators. They discovered their amygdala, the part responsible for fear and threat detection, was actually larger than average. That means they felt stronger waves of fear about tasks. And at the same time, the connection to their decision-making regions was weaker. In other words, procrastinators aren't weaker. They feel the weight of the task more heavily than others. It explains why we freeze. Starting a project feels risky. What if it's not perfect? What if I fail? What if people laugh? The brain treats these questions like real threats, so instead of facing them, we escape. Not with courage, but with distraction. But here's the paradox. The more we escape, the bigger the fear grows. The task we delay doesn't disappear. It mutates. A 2-page essay becomes a monster. A phone call becomes a wall. A workout becomes a mountain. And by avoiding the discomfort, we feed it until it feels unbearable. Think about your own life. How many times have you delayed something simple, a 10-minute call, a small errand, until it became so heavy it kept you awake at night? That's not laziness. That's fear disguised as comfort. And history shows even geniuses struggled with this. Franz Kafka left most of his work unpublished because he couldn't push through. Leonardo da Vinci worked on ideas for years, constantly distracted, often abandoning projects. They weren't lazy, they were human, caught in the same brain battle you fight every day. So what do we learn from this? First, that procrastination is not a personal flaw. It's not proof that you're broken or incapable. It's biology, it's psychology, it's the structure of your brain. And second, that means it can be hacked. Because once you understand the science, you can start bending the system to your side. We'll get to the hacks, the tricks, and the tools later. But for now, remember this. Every time you procrastinate, your brain is not saying you're lazy. It's saying, I'm scared. And fear, unlike laziness, can be faced.
Lesson 2. The stories of procrastinators. When we think of procrastination, we often imagine ordinary people, students cramming the night before an exam, workers missing deadlines, someone ignoring their messy garage. But what if I told you that some of the greatest minds in history, geniuses whose names echo across centuries, struggled with the exact same thing you do every day? Take Leo Tolstoy, for example. The man who wrote War and Peace, one of the greatest novels ever created, was a chronic procrastinator. He confessed in his diaries that he wasted hours, sometimes entire days, avoiding the work he knew he should do. He would scold himself, writing things like, "Stop idling, Leo, stop indulging in laziness." Yet he still delayed. Even while writing Anna Karenina, Tolstoy often postponed chapters for months, lost in distractions. Genius, yes. Disciplined? Not always. Then there's Franz Kafka. You may know him as the author of the Metamorphosis, but what you may not know is that Kafka left most of his works unfinished, and he begged his friend Max Brod to burn his manuscripts after his death. Why? Because he procrastinated so much that he never believed his writings were ready. He delayed, rewrote, second-guessed, until time ran out. Brod, thankfully, ignored his request, and that's why the world still reads Kafka today. But imagine how many stories were lost forever, locked away in the grip of procrastination. And Kafka wasn't alone. Even Victor Hugo, the celebrated author of Les Miserables, was notorious for putting things off. At one point, in desperation to finish a manuscript, he locked away his clothes so he couldn't go outside and socialize, leaving himself only a blanket to wear. That was the only way he could force himself to sit and write. What's the lesson here? That procrastination doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter if you're a genius, a poet, a novelist, or an ordinary worker. That little voice whispering tomorrow visits us all. But here's the tragedy. Procrastination steals not just time, but legacy. How many works did Kafka never finish? How many thoughts from Tolstoy or Hugo never reached the page because they were postponed too long? And here's where the mirror turns to us. How many ideas have you left unfinished? How many times have you said, "I'll start that blog, that business, that book," only to watch weeks melt into years? The stories of these great procrastinators remind us that delay is universal, but they also show something else. Success doesn't require perfection. Tolstoy delayed, but he still delivered greatness. Kafka procrastinated, but his fragments still shook the world. Hugo distracted himself endlessly, but Les Miserables became immortal. The point is not to eliminate procrastination entirely. That's impossible. The point is to act despite it, to produce even if imperfect, because while delay whispers forever, action leaves a mark. So if even the giants struggled, what hope do we have? More than you think, because they prove one thing. You don't have to be flawless to change the world.
Lesson 3. The hidden cost. On the surface, procrastination feels harmless. You delay a task, you scroll for a bit, you relax. Nothing terrible happens, at least not immediately. But the real cost to procrastination is invisible, and it adds up quietly, like interest on a debt. Back in 2002, researchers at Case Western University studied college students across an entire semester. They found something surprising. At the beginning, procrastinators reported less stress and better moods. They felt good. But by the end, Their grades were significantly lower, and their stress levels had skyrocketed. Procrastination gave them short-term comfort, but in exchange, it stole long-term success. And this isn't just about grades, it's about health. In 2016, a team in Sweden followed over 3,000 adults. They discovered that chronic procrastinators had much higher rates of sleep problems, anxiety, and even cardiovascular issues. Why? Because putting things off creates a cycle of guilt and stress. And stress, as science keeps proving, is poison to the body. Think about it. That email you didn't send, the call you didn't make, the workout you skipped, they don't just vanish. They hover like ghosts, whispering at the back of your mind. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik effect. Unfinished tasks stick in your memory like thorns. You can't fully rest because your brain is always nudging you. You still haven't done it. And here's where the cost becomes devastating. Over time, this constant weight chips away at your confidence. You start to doubt yourself. A small missed deadline becomes a story you tell yourself. I'm unreliable. I'm lazy. I can't change. That story becomes identity. But maybe the greatest cost is opportunity. How many people lose chances because they simply didn't start on time? That idea for a business, that chance to learn a language, that connection with someone they wanted to meet. Opportunities don't wait forever, and procrastination quietly steals them, one by one. History is full of reminders. Nikola Tesla, a brilliant inventor, delayed publishing and protecting many of his ideas. Thomas Edison, less talented in some ways, was faster, more consistent, and history remembers Edison more. Was Tesla less intelligent? No. He was simply trapped in hesitation. And if we bring it closer to our own lives, the pattern is the same. A delayed decision can mean a career plateau. A postponed checkup can mean a health scare. A tomorrow in relationships can turn into never. So, when we ask, what's the cost of procrastination? The answer is not just bad grades or missed deadlines. It's stress, illness, wasted chances, and sometimes a life that never reaches its full potential. Here's the truth. Procrastination doesn't just waste your time. It steals your future.
Lesson 4. How to outsmart your brain. If procrastination is a battle between two voices in your head, the planner and the comfort lover, then the question is simple. How do you tip the balance? How do you quiet the voice that whispers later and strengthen the one that says now? The good news is people much smarter than us have already studied this, and they've found tricks, small, almost sneaky ways to outsmart your own brain. 1. The 2-minute rule. It started with productivity consultant David Allen, but psychologists have confirmed it again and again. If a task takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. Why does it work? Because your brain hates starting big things. Write a book feels overwhelming, but write one sentence feels doable. And once you start, momentum takes over. James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, says, "You don't have to be amazing to start, you just have to start." That's the science of it. Your brain resists beginnings, not middles. So instead of saying, "I'll exercise today," say, "I'll put on my shoes." Instead of, "I'll clean the kitchen," say, "I'll wash one plate." You'll be surprised how often just one plate turns into the whole sink. 2. Break the mountain into pebbles. In 2011, researchers at Carleton University asked students to write down why they procrastinated. The #1 reason was, it feels too big. That's why breaking goals into smaller steps works. Want to write a novel? Forget about 300 pages. Think about 1 page today. Want to learn a language? Don't worry about fluency.
Focus on 10 words. Think of it like climbing a mountain. If you stare at the peak, it feels impossible. But if you focus only on the next step, suddenly the mountain shrinks. 3. The power of deadlines. Parkinson's law says work expands to fill the time available. Give yourself a month for a task, and it will take a month. Give yourself a day, and somehow you'll do it in a day. But here's the twist. Deadlines don't just create pressure, they create focus. A study at MIT found that students who set smaller, self-imposed deadlines performed better than those who waited for the final one. The act of choosing a deadline, even an artificial one, gave them structure and reduced stress. So don't wait for someday. Pick a date, circle it, announce it, even if only to a friend. Suddenly, someday becomes real. 4. Trick your future self. Your future self is unreliable. Tomorrow you'll be tired. Next week you'll be busy. That's why smart people build systems that make good choices automatic. Want to save money? Set up automatic transfers so you don't have to decide every month. Want to eat healthier? Don't buy junk food in the first place. Want to exercise? Put your clothes out the night before. This is called choice architecture, shaping your environment so the easiest choice is the right one. Because willpower is fragile, but environment is powerful. 5. Reward the process, not just the result. Your brain loves rewards. Dopamine spikes, not when you achieve, but when you anticipate. That's why video games are addictive. Constant little wins keep you hooked. So use that to your advantage. Don't wait until you finish the marathon to celebrate. Celebrate lacing up your shoes. Don't wait until the book is done. Celebrate finishing a page. One Harvard study found that people who tracked and celebrated small progress were more motivated long-term than those who only celebrated big wins. The brain craves progress, so feed it regularly. These tricks are not magic. They don't erase fear. They don't silence the comfort voice forever. But they give you tools, weapons to fight back. And the lesson is clear. Don't try to defeat procrastination with sheer willpower. Outsmart it. Build systems. Use tricks. Change the environment so that action becomes easier than delay. Because the truth is, discipline isn't about being stronger than everyone else. It's about designing a life where success is the default option.
Lesson 5. The Turning Point. We've talked about history's greatest procrastinators, the hidden costs, and the tricks to outsmart your brain. But at the end of the day, all of this means nothing if you don't decide to act. Here's the truth. Procrastination will never disappear completely. That voice whispering tomorrow will always be there. But here's what changes everything. The moment you stop waiting for the perfect time. There is no perfect time, no perfect mood, no perfect Monday. There is only now. Think of every story we've shared. Kafka delayed and lost countless works forever. Tolstoy fought himself daily. Even geniuses struggled. But what separates those who leave a mark from those who fade away is simple. At some point, they acted. Imperfectly, messily, but they acted. So what about you? How many times have you told yourself, "I'll start tomorrow"? How many dreams are sitting in the attic of your mind, gathering dust because you keep waiting? The turning point is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming honest. Honest enough to admit, yes, I procrastinate. Yes, I delay. But today, I will do one thing, just one. I will start. It could be a page in your journal, a phone call you've avoided, a workout you've skipped. It doesn't matter how small it looks, because small is the door that leads to big. Psychologists call this the activation energy, the tiny spark that starts the fire. Once you strike it, momentum grows. And momentum, not motivation, carries you forward. So here's the challenge. Today, not tomorrow, do one thing you've been postponing. Just one. And when you finish, don't celebrate the task. Celebrate the fact that you turned the wheel of your life in a new direction. Because procrastination thrives on delay. But action, even the smallest action, kills it instantly. And one day when you look back, you'll realize something powerful. The life you wanted wasn't waiting for you at the top of the mountain. It began the moment you stopped waiting and took the first step.